morning, good afternoon, good evening. The Zanu PF factional wars are hotting up. Ben, did you see the letters of Zanu PF officials being suspended? Hello, Ben, are you there?
Good day. Good day to you all. Sorry, I had a problem with my connection. You were saying?
Did you see the suspension letters are now flying right, center, and left?
Oh, yes.
PF,
I managed to,
PF,
to read
other
to
fellow Zanu
read
PF
through.
officials.
Yes, I managed to read through this this particular letter. Let it be known that there's always been a problem of succession in ZANU PF. I mean, let's look at how Mugabe left. That is, clear evidence that there was no succession plan. That was a coup, and that was a breach of the constitution of the party and of the country. So, looking at this one here, why this particular one is merit for suspension and not the other, you know, violations. It's ZANU PF. That's how they work.
Well, the suspensions, for those of you who listeners who may not be aware of it, is emanating from some ZANU PF members have been calling for Mnangagwa to remain in office beyond 2028. And this requirement will require that the nation's constitution clause, which sets the limit for the presidential candidate to remain in office for no more than two terms, will mean that Mnangagwa has got to change that part of the constitution. And there is a faction in ZANU PF, the Chwenga faction, who think that it is Chwenga's turn to be president. And they are, of course, up in arms against those who are calling for Mnangagwa to stay. Here is a sample of those who want Mnangagwa to stay. Well. We have a problem here, Ben.
Yeah, thank you for rewinding, back into time. I think, for the past maybe 2 years, this has been, what has been happening. And I must say, leading in the front is not Harare for this, 2030 ED 2030 movement. You know, it's it started in Mashingo, and Midlands seconded that there. So those are the two provinces that are leading, this whole 20, ED 30, agenda. But let's come fast forward a little and come back to the past, Congress. ZANU-PF Congress that they held recently. Look, they decided. Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. I can hear you. Sorry, there we seem to have lost Ben. But I think the other important point here to note is that as much as the Chiwenga faction are coming out and saying, no, Mnangagwa should not be allowed to stay because of the constitution. This is sheer hypocrisy. Here is VP Chiwenga, just before the coup of 2017, holding the Zimbabwe constitution. He staged that coup under the pretext that he was defending the Zimbabwe constitution. Of course, he was lying. The truth of the matter is, there is not, he could not quote the chapter or verse in that constitution that said it was legal, constitutional, and justified to hold the 2017 military coup. Because there's no such chapter and verse that will allow that. So here is an individual who is in the habit of running for the rule of law, holding the constitution when it suits his agenda. And that is exactly what is happening here. Chiwenga and company, they are the ones who are behind the suspension of these fellow ZANU-PF members who have been advocating for this ED 2030, are doing so under the pretext that they are defending the Constitution. The constitutional clause that says a president should not stay in power for more than two terms. But we know that this is just a convenience. He doesn't care about the Constitution. He never cared about the Constitution. I want to explain to the ordinary Zimbabweans out there who are tempted to take sides in this factional war. It is tempting to say, if Mnangagwa was allowed to change the constitution to stay in power, this could be a problem, not only for 2028, but for future elections. I totally agree with that. But what we have got to remember here is that it really doesn't matter whether Mnangagwa successfully changes the constitution and becomes the ZANU-PF candidate for 2028, or Chiwenga succeeds in stopping this bandwagon and becomes the presidential candidate for ZANU-PF for 2028, or there's somebody else in ZANU-PF who becomes the presidential candidate. It really doesn't matter, because we can be 100% certain that without changing implementing the democratic reforms to ensure elections are free, fair, and credible, ZANU-PF will rig 2028 elections. Our problem in Zimbabwe is that we've been stuck for 44 years and counting with a corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical regime that has been rigging elections to stay in power. So those who are supporting the Chiwenga faction, think about it. What are you doing? You are giving up the more important fight for free, fair, and credible elections to stop Mnangagwa changing the constitution, which at the end of the day will not change what really matters, i.e., stopping Zanu PF rigging the elections. That is what matters here. And I think people must understand that. And we should understand that. And finally address the issues that really and truly matter. I don't know whether you're back, Ben.
Yes, I'm back. My apologies for the loss of connectivity. I will try and rectify it. There's a beautiful way that you always put it. You say, this infighting within ZANU PF, it's when it comes to the povo, which is the ordinary people like us, it's, we are like mice being asked to choose between a black mamba or a cobra. You know, both of them are equally just as deadly. So really, this infighting is not our battle to choose sides, because either way we are the ones that are losing. So we shouldn't be drawn to say who is a better devil than the other. I think if anything is to teach us, we should know, the bad decision where we thought ED was going to be better than Mugabe, and it turned out even worse. ZANU PF has no regard to the constitution, has got no, they got no regard for the laws of the land. They will do what suits ZANU PF, even if it means bulldozing through us, the poor. So really, it is of no benefit to us to choose sides, but rather, for me, one thing that I think that it is something worth discussing is that, this succession plan is not only has not only been a problem in ZANU PF alone. Even in MDC, that was a problem. We know that Changirai, on his deathbed, he failed to have a succession plan. Instead, he actually violated the constitution by, appointing 3 vice presidents, adding Chamisa into the mix. And we all know how that turned out. There were legal battles, there were factions, a lot of, disorganization happened within the opposition. So one thing we can say is there are similarities between ZANU PF and current, MDC, which became Triple C. So those are the similarities that we must highlight, that we must tread carefully to say these guys really do appear to be, doing the same tactics, basically.
Well, my concluding remark is going to be that the people of Zimbabwe should be smart enough to know when they're just being toyed around. ZANU PF is toying with the people of Zimbabwe here. Mnangagwa is saying there's no intention of staying in power beyond 2028. And he may actually mean it. And there is sufficient problems for him to encounter if he was going to stay on. But ZANU PF has got the habit of toying with the people of Zimbabwe. He may know he is not going to change that constitution, but nonetheless, he's telling some of his hunting dogs to keep the issue on the national agenda, to keep steering it up so that the people of Zimbabwe are occupied. the attention is drawn away from what really matters. The immediate thing that really matters for Zimbabweans is the fact that Mnangagwa rigged the 2023 elections. This issue has never been discussed and properly resolved. And the follow-up of that is that Zanu-PF is going to rig 2028 because we are not even discussing that yet. People should be careful, should be smart to realize that in this instance, whether Mnangagwa succeeds, in fact, in changing the constitution, is really irrelevant. If we had continued focus on the issue of reforms, and we had guarantees that 2028 elections are free, fair, and credible. Because I can tell you this much. If the elections are free, fair, and credible, neither Mnangagwa nor Chiwenga nor anyone else in Zanu-PF will win those elections. The people of Zimbabwe have seen that Zanu-PF is corrupt, incompetent, and tyrannical. And given half a chance to get rid of that regime, they will get rid of it. So it becomes irrelevant whether Mnangagwa had succeeded in his scheme to change the constitution. If we succeed in our scheme to make sure that reforms are implemented and the elections are free, fair, and credible. The biggest problem we keep having in Zimbabwe is that people are not focusing what really matters. They're easily being diverted by Zanu-PF. The regime keeps throwing bones at us like dogs. And we start fighting over the bones and forgetting the real issues that really matter. The elephant in the room is the dictatorship. We are not interested in who should become the next dictator. If we get rid of the dictatorship, we will have got rid of the dictator, whoever it is Zanu-PF wanted to impose on us. So my reminder again to the people of Zimbabwe is that you should focus your mind on Mnangagwa rigged the 2023 elections, and per se he is illegitimate. That should be on the table. And the second issue is a follow-up of that. If we do not implement reforms to make sure next elections are free, fair, and credible, Mnangagwa will rig those elections as well. Food for thought. Thank you very much, Ben. And those of you who were able to join us today, thank you very much for joining us. Have a good day.